The fall has come to Krakoa. Has the Quiet Council grown too corrupt and too complacent? Will Cypher be able to be the voice of reason? Or will infighting and power chasing spell the end of the mutant paradise? Well, let's hop into the pages of Immortal X-Men issue number 12 and issue number 13 as we get all caught up together, shall we? Alrighty then, so I have fallen way too behind on my X-Men review, so let's not waste any time getting on into this one. Keeping with tradition, all of these issues of Immortal X-Men focus on one member of the Quiet Council. A council that cannot stop but lose members as of recently. Our POV in this issue is none other than Colossus, who, if you have been keeping up with X-Force, you would already know, is currently an unwilling sleeper agent for his evil brother Mikhail, the Russian government, and a reality-warping mutant who can control Pietor's actions by writing it all down in a book. Basically, he's stuck in some horrible Dostoevsky Russian tragedy. This issue actually has a really interesting conceit, too, where Colossus isn't in control of his own actions, but in his internal monologue, we can hear how horrible his suffering is not being able to stop himself. Like, for example, when Sebastian Shaw is ready to make his next power play, he says that the council needs to move quickly to help fill the seat left behind by the newly ousted Mr. Sinister, and oh boy does he have a candidate. You see, Shaw wants to force a vote right now to get Selene, the vampire mutant supervillain, to take up Essex's now empty seat. You'll remember that Selene had tried to get elected to the council all the way back in issue 1 of this series, and when that didn't work, she tried to destroy the whole island only to get shot in the head by Hope. She's back now thanks to the power of resurrection. Oh, not the power of the Five. She says that she came back via magical means. Again, I think they actually explain this in more detail in one of those Before the Fall tie-ins, but basically all you need to know is that Mother Righteous is behind it all. Well, Destiny actually thinks that Selene is a sleeper agent for Orchis, which actually turns out to be wrong, as ever since Mr. Sinister messed with the timeline, it's caused some sort of chronal after effects where Destiny can't quite read the future like she used to. Shaw's vote actually ends up going off without a hitch, mainly because of Colossus voting in his favor. You'll remember that ever since Storm left the island to attend to matters on Mars, she gave her voting power over to Colossus, and ever since Nightcrawler ran off, fearing repercussions for crimes he committed, while under Orch's control, he also gave his council voting power over to Storm, meaning that Colossus, a compromised councilman himself, now controls 3 whole votes. Getting Selene a seat on the council was actually just Act 1, and the encore they have planned might actually be worse as Colossus moves for the council to vote on exposing the truth behind the Sinister timeline to the rest of the world. Yeah, you heard me right, not just Krakoa, but the entire world. He claims that it's the only right, moral, upstanding thing to do, and if mutant kind has done nothing wrong, then they have nothing to fear. Obviously, this isn't what Pietor is thinking, but it's what he's being told to say. The council is actually slow to even riddle out what anyone is thinking, as their 3 most powerful psychics, Hope, Emma, and Charles, are all out of the room right now, as the council believes they still might be compromised by Mr. Sinister. Xavier, we can see, is in a real defeatist move right now, apparently viewing the dark, twisted future that was the Sinister timeline has really left its mark on him. As psychics, they could all easily be listening in on what the council is saying without them, but he chooses not to, feeling that it's just that sort of overstepping on using his powers that maybe led to the dark timeline to begin with. It's the young Hope, though, who actually decides to listen on into what the council is doing, and it's probably a good thing she did too, because right now she's the only one standing between the nation of Krakoa and another massive upheaval. Hope tries to run on into the room and stop the vote, however she ends up coming face to face with Rasputin 4, the new kind of guard person of the council, whose loyalty is still a little hard to pin down right now. She clearly likes Krakoa and sees it as a mutant paradise, but at the same time she might very well be being influenced by Mother Righteous. A massive fight between Hope and Rasputin ends up breaking out. Hope is a powerful mutant, but Rasputin is from the future and has multiple mutant abilities at once. Things get so desperate that Hope even calls out to Exodus for help, despite the fact that the two weren't exactly seeing eye to eye in the last issue. This actually begins a really interesting character arc for Exodus and his relationship to the rules of Krakoa. He knows that he can't get involved in this fight himself, because if he did, he'd probably just end up killing Rasputin, so instead he decides to follow the rules to the letter, and instead just decides to call Storm back from Mars to deal with this problem. Again, she still has more power than anyone else on the island right now, and when she talks, people listen. Aurora also doesn't seem to understand what exactly Colossus is getting at right now by trying to to disseminate information about the sinister timeline to the rest of the world, but she decides to table the vote until later. It's when everyone retires to their chambers later that night does stuff start to get really interesting. Mystique comes to Destiny all pissed off about the show that she made in the Quiet Council chambers earlier that day. Irene reveals that her powers have been weakening and that she can really only see things in the short term, but long-term future sight seems to be lost to her. A fact of which makes her feel blinder than she ever has in her entire life. Mystique decides to up the ante by saying that she now knows everything that Destiny did in the sinister timeline involving her. How she basically sacrificed an entire universe full of lives and thousands of years just so she could have a little bit more time with the woman she loved. Mystique doesn't mention the fact that it was actually Mother Righteous who gave her this information, mainly because she's just so hurt that Destiny would do something like this. After all, to love Mystique is to know that she is a tiger, that she cannot be caged. Their love may be immortal, but they were never meant to be. The two lovers end up embracing each other in just enough time for Mother Righteous to play her next dirty trick. Using a spell, she briefly takes control of Mystique and gets her to stab Destiny through the stomach. Destiny saw this coming, by the way, but just didn't want to believe it. This is of course bad for a whole lot of reasons, not the least of which being now that Destiny has died, the Quiet Council isn't sure if she too has been corrupted by Sinister in his genes. This means that Colossus somehow manages to wrangle it so he now has 4 votes, meaning that his plan to try and release information about the Sinister timeline to the rest of the world ends up passing without much of a challenge at all. By far though, the worst part of all is that Colossus inside his own mind is just screaming for Storm or Kitty or one of the other characters to realize that he's not himself right now, but no one can seem to notice. And it's with that we head on into issue number 13, the newest issue of the series. This one actually doesn't involve any of the main members of the Quiet Council, but instead focuses on Doug Cypher and the island of Krakoa itself. After all, they were always kind of the official, unofficial 13th member of the council, and Doug himself has proven time and time again that he is a real champion and hero for the island behind the scenes, even going above and beyond them to fight Moira when the situation called for it. Doug is also able to recognize things that the rest of the Quiet Council can't, mainly because they're too busy fighting each other. Like, for the first time ever, fall has come to Krakoa. The leaves are falling off the trees, and that is a really bad omen because they've never actually done that before. Now, what exactly is the Quiet Council arguing about today? Well, they're talking about the fallouts from the Sinister timeline now being revealed to the rest of the world, and it couldn't have come at a worse time. Emma Frost went to the UN, and apparently their worst fears are now coming to pass. Humanity always had it in the back of their head that mutant kind probably could have conquered them easily enough if they wanted to, and now they have a whole hypothetical timeline that proves not only could they do it, but also shows exactly how they would do it. It's because of this humans are no longer trusting the mutants' life-saving medicine, feeling that it could very easily be tampered with. Likewise, even the regular humans who are being resurrected as part of the Phoenix Institute are also starting to fear that their own genes could be corrupted. By extension, the mutants' gross domestic product has also basically been wiped out. Believe it or not, Krakoa wasn't a self-sustaining nation, they just looked like it from the outside. They need to sell their medicine, or else they're gonna be out of money in a couple months easy. All these setbacks have actually caused the normally calm, cool, and collected Emma to start cracking under the pressure. She lashes out at all the other council members, saying that Colossus is a idealistic twit who's doomed them all, that Sebastian Shaw is a bad businessman who keeps making bad deals. Hell, even Nightcrawler and Xavier aren't safe. The White Queen says that Kirk couldn't hack it and that Xavier coddled him way too much. Then of course there's still the matter of Selene, who no one trusts, and why should they? She tried to kill them all and destroy the island when she didn't get voted in originally. Destiny says that they should send her to the pit, but Exodus has other ideas, figuring that he might as well just kill her. Then she can be resurrected, and then they can question her genes and whether or not she's been corrupted by Sinister either, losing another vote, cause hey, why the hell not, right? Everything's coming undone. Storm swoops on in to try and break up Selene and Exodus, but it's right around here that a real problem at the heart of not only the Quiet Council but all of Krakoa ends up being revealed. Mainly that such Omega-level mutants like Storm and like Exodus and like some of the others were only allowed to be governed and played at being a council because they believed in something greater. They believed in a real mutant nation, in a real utopia, but now that dream more and more is being revealed to be a lie. How can the Quiet Council hope to govern everyone else on this island when their own members are becoming so damn ungovernable themselves? The short answer is they can't, and they're going to have to find out something new to do, and very soon. Once again, the council takes a break, and it's here that Cypher decides to have a one-on-one audience with Xavier. Basically, Cypher has a whole list of grievances that he lets Chuck read from his mind. He says that they're a sick nation and that people like Charles are the ones who have made them sick. Mutants are, after all, an oppressed people. And because of that, they damn well know when a government isn't working, and this government is most certainly not working right now. Cypher also lets it slip that that whole pit thing was always cruel and unusual, which is why he basically just ignored everything that Xavier told him to do with it, which in turn did kind of explain how Sabretooth and a bunch of other criminals managed to escape, but that's not important. The important thing is that Krakoa itself is a living, breathing organism. It picks up on everyone else's feelings and psychic energy, and right now it's dying, both literally and figuratively. The fall has come, not just the season, but also, you know, the fall of their civilization. And you know what? These words from Doug actually end up penetrating Professor X like no one in a very long time. For a second, we actually get the old Xavier back. He admits that he's done so much wrong, so much he thought he'd never do. Moira's visions of the future basically scared the crap out of him, and he lost himself. But moreover than that, he basically lost all of his founding fathers and co-conspirators too. Magneto's gone, Moira switched teams, and Apocalypse is a pacifist now, meaning that if anyone is going to be able to put all of this right, it's gotta be Xavier himself. Though Doug also questions if Xavier can even do that anymore. When the council does ultimately reconvene, the path forward is clear, and that is that the Quiet Council needs to finally be dissolved. They have grown too corrupt, too complacent, too power-hungry, and that they should instead be replaced with a psychic democracy. I mean, hey, it's how they choose the new members over in the main X-Men book, so yeah, really, why shouldn't they do it for everything else? Some of the more aggressive members fear that this kind of democracy is way too human of them, but as Doug says, a more human idea is to think they would have nailed making a paradise society on their first try. They're mutants after all. Isn't evolution kind of their thing? Maybe something good can actually come out of all of this bad. Maybe, just maybe, if they change their ways now before it's too late, they can become the people Krakoa always wanted them to be. It's a right pretty speech that rouses the whole room. Unfortunately, it's right after that Krakoa ends up gobbling up Cypher, taking him somewhere that even the most powerful psychics cannot follow, and when Hope ends up trying to copy Cypher's power and talk to the island, all Krakoa says back is that it did it for Doug's own protection. Which, you know, certainly sounds bad for everyone as the comic comes to a close. And so that was Immortal X-Men issues number 12 and issues number 13, everybody, and man alive am I glad I finally got the opportunity to catch up on this. Because man, these two issues here are some wild gut punches here. I've been with this series since the Hickman era, watching him painstakingly build this house of cards, and now Al Ewing is having a great time knocking it all down and seeing how it falls. While also remembering that at its core, this era of X-Men stories has all been about nationalism and hubris, and now all of those chickens are finally coming home to roost. That's all great, but still though, what I think has me coming back time and time again are the deeper, more nuanced, more personal stories, the tragic, doomed romance between Mystique and Destiny. Poor Colossus trapped within his own mind with no way out, and even Xavier slowly but surely actually having what we would call in wrestling a face turn. It's just so good. It makes me want to read more. It makes me want to get more caught up, and overall I would give this one a much deserved 9 out of 10. If you're not reading Immortal X-Men, oh boy are you missing out. Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cape Jewel again, thanking you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, why not check out my Amazon link down in the description. Yes, that's right, the Cape Jewel channel officially has its own Amazon storefront now. You can pick up a comic or anything else for that matter, and if you did, you'd really be helping me in the channel. So with that out of the way everyone, I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.